I've never been the kind of person who believed in ghosts, demons, or the whispers of things that creep in the night. My friends would laugh at horror movies, but I always shrugged them off, convinced that fear was just a trick of the mind. That changed when I moved into the old house on Willow Street, a house that still makes my blood run cold when I remember the nights I spent there, listening to the voices in the dark. The house wasn't mine. I had rented it for 6 months while working on a freelance writing project that demanded peace, solitude, and distance from the busy noise of the city. The listing described it as quiet, cozy, with a touch of rustic charm. It was cheap, almost suspiciously cheap, but I was desperate for a place where I could focus. When I first arrived, I convinced myself that the creaking floors, the smell of damp wood, and the faded wallpaper were all part of its character. The house had history, layers of it, and I told myself I was simply stepping into that history for a short time. On the very first night, I realized history doesn't always sleep. I had just finished unpacking and was lying in bed, exhausted, when I heard it, a soft murmur, like someone whispering right outside my bedroom door. I froze. My heart thudded against my ribs, but I told myself it was just the old wood settling, or maybe the wind sneaking through the cracks in the windows. I turned on my side, pulled the blanket tighter around me, and forced myself to drift off. But just as I slipped into sleep, I swore I heard it again. A whisper. A voice too low to understand, but undeniably human. The next morning, I laughed at myself in the bathroom mirror. "You're imagining things," I whispered, shaking my head. "It's just nerves. New house. Old wood. That's it." But deep down, I knew it hadn't been just the house. Over the next few days, the whispers returned. Always at night. Always when the lights were off. They came from the corners of the room, from the cracks in the walls, from beneath the floorboards. Sometimes it was just one voice, low and hushed, as if it were sharing a secret I wasn't supposed to hear. Other times, it sounded like a whole crowd murmuring in unison, their tones overlapping, building into a faint hum that made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore it. I played music on my phone at night, left a lamp on, even stuffed tissues in my ears. But the voices always found a way in. They slipped through the noise, through the light, through the thin barrier of my sanity, growing bolder with each passing night. On the 6th night, they spoke clearly. I had been tossing and turning when the whisper turned sharp, deliberate, cutting through the darkness like a blade. "Get out." I sat up in bed, my breath caught in my throat. My eyes darted around the room, but nothing moved. The shadows clung stubbornly to the corners. I told myself it was a dream, a trick of exhaustion, but then the whisper came again, closer this time, right by my ear. "Leave." I screamed. The sound bounced off the walls of the empty house, and for a moment the silence, after, felt heavier than the voice itself. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swept it across the room. Empty. Completely empty. But the fear remained, thick and suffocating. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner of the room with every light on, gripping a kitchen knife like it could save me. My mind raced, trying to rationalize the impossible. Maybe it was neighbors? But the nearest house was half a mile away. Maybe I was hallucinating? But the cold sweat dripping down my back told me it was real. The next day, I tried to convince myself to leave. I even packed my bag. But something strange tugged at me, a compulsion I couldn't explain. It was as if the house itself didn't want me to go, and some part of me didn't either. I told myself I had to stay, at least for the sake of finishing my work. I told myself I was stronger than the whispers. That night, I learned how wrong I was. When the whispers returned, they didn't just speak. They laughed. The sound was low, mocking, and it echoed inside my skull until I pressed my hands to my ears, begging it to stop. Then the voices began to call my name. Sarah, hearing your own name in the dark, when you're alone, is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. It's intimate in the most horrifying way. It felt like the house itself had learned who I was, and now it was toying with me. I ran out of my bedroom and tried to sleep in the living room, but the whispers followed me there. No matter where I went, they were there, under the couch, behind the curtains, beneath the floor. On the 10th night, the voices grew bold enough to show themselves. I was lying awake, eyes wide, when I noticed a shadow move across the far wall. At first, I thought it was just the headlights of a passing car, but the road was too far for that. The shadow wasn't from outside, it was in the room with me. Slowly, it stretched upward, tall and thin, until it reached the ceiling. My breath hitched as the whispers grew louder, surrounding me, filling the room with a chorus of incomprehensible words. I couldn't move. My body felt paralyzed, trapped under the weight of their voices. The shadow inched closer, and in the midst of the noise, one voice rang out clear. "You can't leave." That broke me. I grabbed my bag, didn't bother with half the things I owned, and ran out of the house barefoot. The night air was sharp and cold, but I didn't care. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs shook, until the house was nothing but a dark outline in the distance. I stayed at a motel that night, too terrified to sleep. When I returned the next day, it was only to collect the rest of my things and leave for good. The house was silent then, mockingly so, as if it knew it had won. I swore I would never set foot in it again. It's been months since that night, but I still hear them sometimes. When I lie in bed, just before sleep, a faint whisper curls into my ear. Sometimes it's laughter, sometimes it's my name. I don't know if the voices followed me, or if they were always inside me, waiting for the darkness to bring them out. All I know is this: silence is never empty. If you listen closely enough, the dark will always answer back. And when it does pray, it doesn't know your name.